Okay. Yeah, right. Oh, did we lose someone? Who was it? Oh, okay. No problem. All right. So, don't be afraid. All right. So, first off, I just want to start by saying thanks for showing up. And if you have any questions at any point during this, do not hesitate to ask right away. The last thing that I want is to go through like all these steps here and then have somebody have misunderstood something that happened like way up here at the top. Can you guys see my mouse? Okay. And then have somebody it just messes up the kind of the rest of the training. If you don't understand something at the beginning, then that can have cascading effects later on. So do speak up. I think we lost somebody for the flight portion, so we're gonna have to get creative about potentially mixed sections, and I'll need to get some information from you guys as to what interflights you guys are going to be using and what grid coordinates you guys are going to need, like the format. But starting off here, all right, so this right here on the left side is the flow that every one of your CAS missions is going to follow. All right. Starts with routing, safety of flight, CAS check-in, situation update. You'll get a game plan and a CAS brief, sometimes simultaneously from the JTAC. They'll provide remarks and restrictions. You'll read everything back from your system. We'll enter a correlation phase where we're going to agree upon what the correct target is. You'll attack it. We're going to figure out if it needs to be reattacked, get BDA, and there should be another routing and safety of flight on the back end. I don't know what happened to it. It got cut off. That's not right. Okay. Routing safety of flight. It's the exact same step as the first one. Yeah. So we'll just kind of walk through it in the order that it's going to happen. All right. So you guys are going to either be launching out of Al Dafra or you're going to be launching from the LHA or carrier. You'll be linking up with your own section. You'll leave the carrier's airspace, at which point you should be switching to some kind of command and control frequency, whether that's the strike net or whether that's the direct air support center. They're going to be the people who are going to be talking to you en route to your objective area. So their job is to basically pass word back to you from the people who requested you. So they're going to be the ones giving you, they may give you the situation update ahead of time, which is very useful so that as you guys are kind of ingressing to the objective area, you'll already kind of have an idea of what to expect when you get there. So you'll be heading to the objective area, talking to the DASC, and at some point, when you get 10, 15, 20 miles out, you'll request a switch to the Tactical Air Direction Net, your TAD. All right. Any questions so far? Yep. Sometimes they'll have you switch at a specific control point, which I don't think we have any pre-spun control points in CSG-1 for the objective area. This upcoming mission tomorrow, there are a couple of pre-spun IPs, so we'll briefly cover those as well. But those are a little bit close to the objective area to use as kind of like a contact frequency. You'll want to contact the JTAC with enough time for them to give you routing instructions to a CAS stack or a hold point. Okay. So what call sign are we going to be using today? No. Just what call sign do you guys want to use? What's up? No. I mean for your guys' flights. Weasel. Okay. So my call sign is going to go ahead and be broadsword, and your guys' call sign will be weasel. So 15, 20 miles out, which gives you a couple of minutes to receive routing instructions. You'll request to switch off your C2 freak. You'll get approved for the switch. Contact broadsword on TAD 1 or whatever. You'll say, Roger, switching. You roll to TAD 1, and then your initial contact with broadsword is going to be broadsword, and then whatever number comes after that, we'll just say broadsword 1. Broadsword 1, weasel 1-1, flight of 4, Harriers, and give me your position and altitude right away. Okay? And that can be plain English. It could be, 15 miles east at whatever altitude block you guys were assigned. It could be the control point that you were, told to switch at. Just communicate that to me right away so that I know where you are, because my job right away is this routing safety of flight piece. All right? So I'm going to route you to the CAS stack. That can be a couple of things, okay? So if we have like an IP over here and an IP over here, the CAS stack could be, we'll just call this one Mazda and this one Dodge. The CAS stack could be Mazda Dodge 15 block 17. Okay? That just means that your flight is going to be orbiting Mazda Dodge from 15 to 17,000 feet. Make sense? All right, the CAS stack could also be given in keyhole format. Okay? Is anybody familiar with keyhole? Okay. Keyhole is just when there aren't pre-spun IPs or control points. So you could be out in the middle of the desert. You could be in a new area where command and control hasn't created IPs yet. You'll use keyhole, which Alpha is north, Bravo's east, Charlie's south, Delta's west, and it's going to be based on point echo, which is going to be some kind of, not necessarily the target. Sometimes it is the target, but if you were provided a point echo from command and control as you ingressed to the objective area, then I may give you a keyhole. All right. And that will sound like, oh, go, what's up? Yep, so north is up. So we got Alpha to the north, Bravo to the east, Charlie to the south, Delta to the west. Yep. So that could sound like Weasel 1 and flight proceed Bravo 8, 15 block 17. All right, and what that tells you, provided you received your situation update already from the C2 and you know where point echo is to begin with, is I'm going to proceed 8 nautical miles east of the objective area, or of point echo, no closer than 8 nautical miles at 15 block 17, and you'll hold a racetrack there. I would just tell you hold Bravo 8, 15 block 17. Okay. Now that could also be communicated, just like we did with the IPs, as 2 points. All right. So if I tell you to hold, oh, damn it, my tablet keeps messing up. All right. So I could tell you to hold Alpha Bravo 8, 15 block 17, which means northeast, no closer than 8 nautical miles, 15 to 17,000 feet. So that is going to depend on a couple of different factors. It's up to the flight to determine what length is necessary. But so what that means is that it's going to depend on how many planes are in your flight. That makes sense. So later on, that's your altitude. Yeah. So later on, when we get to the game plan down here, all right, there's a section called interval, and that's where we talk about the interval at which bombs hit. Okay, so that for bombs, that's generally 30 seconds to a minute. So when you're up in your CAS stack, you're basically just doing quick math to determine how far away you need to be between each other at a certain speed to sort of perform that interval. So you're not going to be in like an echelon or anything like that in your CAS stack. You're probably going to be in trail, and depending on how many airplanes you have, you want to keep a steady interval between them, kind of in your racetrack. If you're flying 480 knots, all right, that's 8 nautical miles a minute. Your distance between airplanes to provide a 1 minute interval is going to be 8 nautical miles apart. Everyone tracking? Cool. And the reason that I selected 8 nautical miles for the hold here is because typically you want about a minute from the IP to bombs hitting the target. So this number right here changes airframe to airframe. An A-10 would not be getting held 8 nautical miles away from the target. They'll probably be closer to 5 or something like that. All right. See if there's an easier way to do this. Oh no. All right. Any questions about the holding? Okay. So you'll be provided holding instructions, and at that time, part of routing and safety of flight is I'm going to tell you who else is on station and at what altitude. Okay, so if you're checking in, 15 nautical miles east of the target, and I give you instructions to hold Bravo 8, 15 block 17, you give me, a Roger, Bravo 8, 15 block 17, and then I'm going to tell you who else is on station. There could be another section of Hornets, and I'll tell you that they're holding Alpha 8, 18 block 20. Okay, just as an example. Or I'll tell you that you're the only air on station, and that just gives you better situational awareness as to who else is out there, so that we don't have like mid-air collisions, or you're not surprised when you see other airplanes in the airspace. There's no question about whether or not they're friendly or enemy. Okay. All right. So after we do the routing and safety of flight, I'll request a CAS check-in. All right. The full format is right here. It's the MN Popka format. All right. You should all be familiar with it. If you're not, that's fine. It's just called MN Popka because the first letter spells MN Popka. All right. And I'll request your check-in, and you'll say, Weasel 11 mission number, whatever your mission number is. It's on the ATO. 4 Harriers or 4 AV-8Bs holding Bravo 8, 15 block 17, and you give me the ordnance. That's not combined ordnance, that's ordnance per aircraft. Typically, you'll all be checking in with the same ordnance on each plane, which makes it really easy for me because it abbreviates the check-in and there's no confusion on my part if I need a specific bomb out of the section. But sometimes you don't check in with the same ordnance, which is also fine. It's just you need to specify who has what on each aircraft. Or brief to me all of the similarities first, and then say, oh, by the way, lead aircraft has this bomb, whereas Dash 2 has this bomb. Make sense? All right. Playtime given in X plus XX format. Okay. So for a Harrier, your playtime is probably going to be something like 0 plus 30. Try not to say 0 plus 30 because it's just try to keep it digitized if you can. But for a Hornet, you may have 0 plus 45 or 0 plus 40, something to that effect. The playtime isn't super important to me. A lot of people think that CAS is about loiter time, and in a counterinsurgency style operation, loiter time is certainly helpful, but as long as you have enough playtime to conduct enough attacks to get all the ordnance off your airplane, I'm happy as a JTAC. Okay. So this is kind of like the tempering factor against loadouts in DCS, where you see like people bringing 12 GBU-12s, which isn't even a valid loadout, because there's no possible way that you could drop all of those bombs in the playtime that you would have available to support somebody on the ground. Any questions about that? Oh, yeah, try to digitize it. So 0 plus 3, 0. Yeah, that's correct. And then you would just, before you check in with the JTAC, you would have that written down, or have some kind of idea of how much fuel you had to burn while you were on station. And that can change. I may request periodic playtime updates, which is, just give me an estimate. You can also, so your initial check-in where you talk about your playtime can be, 0 plus 3, 0. But if I ask for it again, you can just turn it into plain English and tell me, oh, I got enough, fuel for 1 or 2 more attacks. Okay. You'll give me your capabilities. Oh, sorry, let me backtrack real quick. In your ordnance, this is where you give me your laser codes on your bombs. Okay. So if you have to communicate that, that'll be like a GBU-12 coded 1688. Or if you have different laser codes from aircraft to aircraft, so that you can do things like simultaneous impacts. Lead has 1688-2's coded 1631. Something to that effect. In capabilities, this will tell me who has a lightning pod. All right. That's really the only, or who's FAC-A qualified or anything like that. Those are really the only DCS style things that apply here. In reality, you give me things like your video downlink codes, which it'd be really nice if I had, but we don't. So that's just where you'd tell me any kind of miscellaneous information about your flight and about the specific qualifications you possess in that flight. That's where that's communicated. And then your abort code, which I think it's standard practice for us. We just say abort is abort in the clear, which just means that we're not using an encrypted frequency. I'm just going to call abort, and then we honor those aborts. We don't question them. We abort if somebody calls abort. So Disco, I know you've got a little script for this. Did you want to go over an example of how that would sound? Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, yeah. Now, while he's pulling that up, also know that it doesn't need to follow this format exactly. If time is of the essence, I may omit most of this information because you already told me, where you are, for example, and I think I can assume, based on the ordnance you're bringing, what some of your playtime and capabilities are. I may just ask for your ordnance. Like, hey, what do you have on your plane right now? Because I'm taking fire and I need to get one of those bombs off of it. So last week was an example of armed reconnaissance more than CAS, where you had somebody on the ground who was kind of giving you target locations, but you should have launched knowing what the target precedences were, and those should have been given to you. I understand that they weren't, I'm not pointing fingers or anything like that, but I kind of tried to provide a little bit of motherhood last week about that, about which ones the priorities were, and that's why I had asked those questions. Once you said that you didn't, have a TPL or anything like that, that's when I said, all right, well, let's blow up the C2 first, and then we'll go for the artillery, and yeah. But in a CAS environment, you don't really have a TPL. You're kind of at the beck and call of the person on the ground, trying to fulfill their intent as best you can. Yeah, we could do a little bit of ad-libbing. That's fine. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot or anything. Weasel 2, 1, broadsword, proceed, Bravo 8, 15, block 17, and go with check-in. Bravo 8, 15, block 17. All right, perfect. Yeah, that's basically how it would go, and you can see that even ad libbing it, imagine being briefed this information and having it on your kneeboard card. Like, it really doesn't take a whole lot of time to kind of conceptualize and just go through what it is you need. Um, I mean, great job. It's just that's kind of indicative of how simple it is in execution, where, looking at it on the screen here, it's like it's a lot of words to remember, but as long as you have those words in front of you, or you just remember them, you can really easily write down how it is you're going to communicate those things, in a matter of seconds. All right, any questions about the check-in? Exactly. And don't get hung up on the order of the words. Like, I hear 15 block 17, I hear block 15 17. It just, however you happen to do it, whatever your personal style is, there's no right or wrong way. I prefer 15 block 17 just because it's a separator between the two, like the low end and the high end of the altitude block. But, it's not something that you necessarily need to correct over the radio. All right. Moving on into the situation update. All right. So after you give me your check-in, we go to the situation update, and I'll just ask you if you're ready to copy. Okay. And when you guys have your pens and your kneeboard paper ready, you'll tell me that you're ready. First thing I'm going to do is communicate to you the threat. That's not the threat to me. That's the threat to you. So if you have ZSUs, rolling around the objective area, I'm going to tell you that, hey, we saw, two ZSU 23 TAC 4s in the vicinity of, whatever grid, 39 Romeo Yankee Golf 98776, correction, 987776. And, you'll just annotate that on your map, and know that there's some self-propelled anti-aircraft artillery out there. And that's more for you than it is for me. The threat of man pads is kind of ever present. I would say in kind of these opening engagements, just assume that there's going to be man pads out there. But as it transitions to a more counterinsurgency style fight, that's going to be something that's going to have to get specified to you, that there's man pad activity in the area. So just know that how that gets communicated changes over time. I'll tell you the enemy situation, so I'll know, who's out there, whether it's the 85th Mechanized Rifle Brigade, whatever their name is, or whatever their type of unit is. I'll know generally what the enemy situation is, whether they're in the offense and they're attacking, or whether they're defending. I'll communicate that to you. That gives you an idea of what to look out for on the ground and how mobile the enemy is, how mobile your targets might be. I'll tell you grids, if I have them, for known enemy locations that are expected to remain static. Or I'll just use georefs, which are like enemies are southwest of the river, that kind of thing. Okay. I'll communicate the friendly situation. I'm going to try my best not to use grid coordinates, all right, on the off chance that somebody is listening to our communications that I don't want them to be listening to. All right, I'm going to give you, and also, I don't want one of those grid coordinates to accidentally make its way into one of your guys' computer systems, and then suddenly I've got a JDAM on my position. Okay? Makes sense? All right. Artillery. Okay, so I'm going to tell you if there's any active gun target lines in the area. Okay, so if my position is up here, I may have a section of mortars, okay, behind me. I'm going to tell you roughly where they are. Again, not like a grid coordinate. You'll probably launch knowing where the mortar positions and artillery firing areas are. If you don't, it's not a big deal. But I'll give you a rough location of where they are. I'll give you a grid target line, okay, which in this case is something like, 215 degrees magnetic, okay? And I will try to give you a max ord, okay? It's not so much a factor in DCS, but a max ord, if we're looking at this from the side, we got the target over here, we got the mortar tube over here. The max ord is the highest point on the arc of that round. So for mortars, we'll just say 7,000 feet. I'll try to give it to you in MSL. Okay, so the elevation of the ground is gonna, I'll take that into account here. But that just tells you that you want to exercise extra caution if you're dropping below a floor of 7,000 feet MSL to be offset laterally from that gun target line. Any questions about that? Okay. Clearance authority. This is where I tell you who's going to be approving the fires. I'm just going to say that that's me because we don't have like a full C2 here. Hazards and weather. I will tell you things like if there are mountains to the west. So if I'm having you doing, diving gun runs from the east, you don't crash into them. That would be a bad day for everybody. I'll tell you the maximum elevation, so like the min safe altitude, basically, that you should adhere to, or just the maximum elevation of those mountains. I'll tell you if there's like power lines in the area or tall buildings, that kind of thing. Anything that could potentially affect your ingress or egress instructions. I will also give you weather, which is just my observation of what the weather is on the deck. Typically, I'm going to try to run you guys in to the wind. All right, it's into the wind is preferable. Tailwind is secondary, and then crosswinds are tertiary. We don't really like dealing with crosswinds. So if I give you winds on the deck out of the west at like 10 knots, then that means that you can probably expect, as you're holding over here Bravo, or if you're up here Alpha Bravo, that I'm going to be giving you a couple of attacks, provided the tactical situation allows it. The majority of your attacks are going to be from the east. Weather's also where we'll talk about the cloud decks, that kind of thing. We don't play with clouds a whole lot because they're not synced between clients. But if we have like an overcast layer or something like that, I'll tell you what the observed floors are of those, and you'll probably have to tell me what the tops are, and we'll kind of come up with ways to deal with that when we get down here into the the attack area. And then restrictions, that's more for working with joint players that don't follow all the same rules that we do, at least in the Marines, where a lot of our stuff is standardized internally. And when I say joint, I mean like Air Force and Navy and that kind of thing, where our readbacks are all going to be from our system, not from our kneeboard. Okay, so when you are typing grid coordinates and stuff into your computer system, I'd like you to be looking at what you entered into your computer system when you're reading it back to me, not necessarily what you wrote down, because if those things differ, then it could cause, you know, like a friendly fire incident and that kind of thing. Yep, you tell me as soon as you guys get MGRS up, because that's going to become our default. But until then, I'd like to use a system that we can all use. So do you guys prefer the decimal minutes, or do you guys prefer degrees, minutes, seconds? Okay, then we'll do degrees, minutes, seconds. Um, okay, so any questions about the situation update? That's just me informing you the best I can. And I may, if we have C2 available, or if I have time on the front end, I may play the role of C2. And when I pass you one of these situation updates, all right, and you guys say you got it, we're going to say, all right, set puck 1 alpha or something like that. Puck stands for pilot update code, all right? And what puck 1 alpha means, once we say that we've set it, that means that you guys got this situation update. So if you got this from C2 and you check in, under capabilities in your check-in, you're going to say puck 1 alpha capable. And that means that I don't even have to do any of this. I can just brief you whatever exceptions to puck 1 alpha are. That make sense? So we just expedited that whole process and saved like 5 minutes or whatever. All right. Now we get into the good stuff. All right, so these three things are kind of all very closely interconnected. The first thing that I'm going to get is I'm going to tell you Weasel 1-1 advised and ready for game plan. And then whoever Weasel 1-1 is going to say that they're ready. Provided, you know, they check in with their wingmen on interflight to make sure that they're ready as well. Everybody in the flight needs to be up TAD. Okay, everybody in the flight needs to hear the stuff, and everybody in the flight needs to provide readbacks. Okay? But you'll be doing all your internal coordination over your interflight. So, you know, flight lead checks in with, or asks, you know, their flight to advise them ready. 2, 3, 4, Weasel 1-1 ready for game plan. Or Weasel 1-1 and flight ready for game plan. They should probably be on the entire time, because if I give an abort, I'm giving an abort to that aircraft. Yeah, I would just advise that when you switch your mission frequency over, so your external radio over to the TAD, that everybody in the flight does that too. And that also helps, like, people aren't going to be talking over other people because they didn't know that the other people were transmitting. So everybody in the flight can kind of shut up when the JTAC's talking. Okay. There's a lot of good reasons that everybody needs to be up, not just the inter-flight tag frequency, but also the mission frequency for where the controller's speaking to the flight. Yeah, so one thing that I'm gonna have AWAC start doing is if you guys start getting people heading into our objective area, the AWACs are gonna have to find us on TAD. And then yeah, no, I gotcha. It's just it's much easier for the guy in the AWACS to click a little button and change radios and then say, hey, you know, Weasel 1-1 execute slide game plan, than it is for us to deal with all the confusion and uncertainty associated with everybody not being up the same frequencies. All right, so we're going to spend just a little bit of time talking about the game plan, okay? So the first one is the type of control, all right? So there's 3 types. I don't know if everybody here knows them. Type 1, 2, 3. They're not what DCS says types 1, 2, and 3 are. Okay? Type 1 just means that the attacking aircraft, all right, the JTAC on the ground, and the target, all right, that means the JTAC can see the aircraft can see the JTAC, the aircraft can see the target, and the JTAC can see the target. It means that everybody can see everybody. And we're going to be executing a single attack. All right, and yep. Type 2 is where one of those links in the chain doesn't necessarily exist. One or more, really. Type 2 is maybe the JTAC can't see the airplane because there's a cloud layer in the way. Maybe the aircraft can't see the target because there's a cloud layer in the way. Maybe both. But that's all Type 2 means. Type 2 means that we're going to have to use other methods of ensuring that the aircraft's nose is pointed at the target than visual means. Okay? No. Type 2 is just you may not see the target at all. You may be employing from above a cloud deck. It may be nighttime, and I can't see you from the ground. Yeah, it's just it's a tool that we use to define or that kind of helps you understand how the rest of the attack is going to go, because the communications flow is going to change depending on on which type I select. Okay. That would be a type 2 bomb on coordinate. Exactly. Yeah. And then yeah, technically, yeah. We that's on the JTAC in that scenario, and the person who's clearing your fires, not necessarily on you, if that makes sense. The JTAC bought that bomb. Really, the JTAC is buying every bomb because he's giving you cleared hots. All right. And then type 3 is the same as type 2, except multiple attacks. All right. So these two are single attacks. All right. And then a type 3 is multiple attacks in a single engagement. All right. So over here in type 1 and 2, it's going to be a cleared hot. And over here in type 3, it's going to be a clear to engage. And then I'll be monitoring multiple attacks in the type 3, and I'll provide aborts as necessary. But as long as you're adhering to the requirements set forth in the restrictions, then you're going to keep engaging until your targeting is complete. That's correct, and it applies to the flight. So basically, I could have a Type 2 bomb on target. We'll just make it simple. Type 1 bomb on target. All right, that means everybody can see everybody, and you're gonna have to see the target before you drop bombs. But it's for the entire flight, and I want 2 Mark 82s off each aircraft. All right, 4 planes are gonna be dropping 2 Mark 82s. That's 8 bombs, but that's still considered a single attack. All right. The second that lead turns around and comes in for a re-attack, it becomes more than one attack, and it becomes an engagement. All right, any questions there? All right, now we're going to get into the methods of attack. All right, there's 2 methods of attack. Bomb on target, bomb on coordinate. These define what the correlation requirements are going to be. All right, correlation is a step over here, and when we start talking about it in the game plan, it's going to define what correlation is required. In a bomb on target scenario, you're going to have to be tally, contact, or captured on the target or mark. Okay, so with your own eyes or with your sensor, you have to see the target. That's something that has to happen in the correlation phase. In a bomb on coordinate attack, that does not have to happen. Once you provide me your readbacks, provided those readbacks are correct, correlation is complete. We don't have to worry about correlation anymore. You read it back, you're going to drop on that coordinate, everything's going to be fine. Any questions? All right. There are no questions right now, but I just want to iterate here that there can be any combination of type of control and method of attack. All right, you can have a type 1 bomb on coordinate. You could have a type 3 bomb on target. And really, there's any combination of ordnance as well that can get thrown into the mix here. And they all kind of contextually inform how the attack is going to occur. There's only one ordnance and type combination that can't happen. Does anybody have any idea what that is? Bueller? Nope. It's you can't have a type 1 and a JDAM. Does anybody have any ideas why? Okay, so with the bomb on target, bomb on coordinate thing, that's a correlation requirement. So the bomb on coordinate would mean that I gave you the coordinate and you're going to just drop on it. I could still give you a bomb on target with a JDAM. That just means that it's a self-derived coordinate. You got your own coordinate with your T-pod. But the reason that you can't have a type 1 with a JDAM together is because in a type 1, I have to visually assess your nose position to tell you whether or not you're pointed in the right direction as the target. Whereas in a type 2, remember, we're using other means, so that could be like final attack headings. So, but with the JDAM, it doesn't care where your nose position is. It cares what grid was entered into it. So my ability to assess that you're pointed at the target means, jack shit if the JDAM just comes off and comes straight back at me. All right. And then interval, that's where I'll tell you, or ordnance and interval together, I'll say 2 Mark 82s each aircraft, 1 minute interval, which means that you guys probably want to be 8 nautical miles away from each other. And I want 2 Mark 82s each aircraft. If you're flying, 480 knots, whatever. There's some wiggle room here, all right? I'm not going to be too much of a stickler about specific, hitting your specific TOTs, especially since we don't have synchronized clocks and stuff like that. but that's how that's going to be communicated. And I may ask for simultaneous impacts, which means then you guys kind of form up into your echelon and you come in together, and I'll clear you hot as a flight rather than as singletons. Correct. It could be multiple targets. So if I have 4 airplanes, and those 4 airplanes each have a Maverick, and there's 4 enemy tanks down here on the ground, your target, when we get to the description section, could be tank platoon. And your sorting is going to happen. I may specify the sorting, all right, in remarks and restrictions, or I may leave it up to you, and then you guys can sort as a flight. Lead, we'll just sort left to right if we're attacking from the northwest. So lead hits that one, -2, -3, -4. But that would constitute a single attack on that tank platoon. All right. And then there's also plain English that could be used in this. So this is also where I may just say, hey, I'm trying to take out these people over here. I expect to run, I expect the Maverick to hit first, and then I would like some Mark 82s to follow up, or I'd like it to be followed up by a gun run. Like, it's just plain English that helps the flight understand how the attack is going to be carried out. Any questions? All right. After we go over the game plan, all right, then we get into the attack brief. I'll ask you if you're ready for the attack brief. You'll make sure that everybody's ready to write stuff down. We'll say ready. I'm not going to specify like line numbers. I'm not going to say like line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. I'm just going to say the information, and then it's up to you to use your kneeboard cards or your memory to know what that information means. Yeah, and that also helps you catch mistakes that either the JTAC or flight lead make. If, -2 was the one who wrote down the grid correctly, before lead gives readbacks that are incorrect, they'll all kind of internal to the flight make sure that they got it correct, or that they're internally consistent first. All right. Here, for this first one, I'll just fill some stuff in. Absolutely, yes. In reality, this process here, where you're copying down the 9 line and providing readbacks and everything, takes like in excess of 5 minutes, because you're all making sure that the flight is internally consistent. And take your time, slow, smooth, smooth is fast. Oh, just in general, just like the time between fencing in and checking in and everything. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good point. All right, so if everybody's ready, we'll go into the CAS attack brief. All right. All right, so lines 1 through 3. This is just an easy way to remember kind of what the information is. Okay, lines 1 through 3 deal with where you are. All right, where you're coming from, and what that point is in relation to the target area. Lines 4 through 6 deal with where the target is and what it is. And then 7 through 9 are kind of just miscellaneous information and then where you're going. So it's flowed out in order from like where you're coming from, where you're going to, and then where you're ending up. All right. So we'll say that we have Mazda and Dodge out here, just for the sake of this scenario. Okay. The IP is the point that you're expected to pass through on your way to the target, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be on that specific heading. All right. I'll typically assign final attack headings, which in this case will be something like, let's see, what would it be? 250 through 280, we'll say. All right. So that'll come off like this. All right. So you're expected to kind of pass through the IP, but that doesn't mean you need to be like level going to the IP. That means that you're free to maneuver within the final attack cone to have your heading end up somewhere in this cone here. All right, so that means that you could be flying down south here, and then you're doing an adaptive roll-in onto the target area. It could mean that you flew kind of this way, and then you're going to do an adaptive roll-in that way. You're not beholden to this straight line between the IP and the target. Does that make sense? As long as when you make your in call, it's somewhere within 250 and 280, I'm a happy camper. We'll get into the comm flow, but it'll be initially an IP comm. Yeah. So we'll say IP, Dodge, heading, we'll just say 260. And that's in degrees magnetic, all right? But I'll just say 260. Distance, 8. And that's in nautical miles. But you're going to hear it Dodge, 260, 8. That tells you IP, direction, distance. And that's just for your situational awareness. Elevation of the target, I'll say 13 feet, MSL. Description, container or something. Location, I'll give you your lat long. Mark, we'll go with Takon. Friendlies, northeast, 1500. That's in meters. All right, northeast, 1500 meters. Egress, left pole, Mazda Dodge, 15 block 17. All right, so just walking you through this 9 line. You know that you're passing through Dodge, given your IP inbound call. Flying to your adaptive roll-in point. When your wings level on the target, Weasel 1-1 or whoever you are, in heading 270. Or in 270. That's when I give you your cleared hot or abort. All right? And then you release your weapons, perform your safe escape maneuver, left pull, Mazda Dodge, 15 block 17. Does that all make sense? Your left pull is in your egress instructions, and that's telling you, after you've employed your weapons, which way you should turn to either avoid the enemy or avoid a hazard, or just to make sure that the flow of traffic with other aircraft in the area is good. Does that make sense? All right. Now, let's say we're not using IPs. All right. The thing that makes Keyhole so awesome is that you don't need them as long as you have your point echo, right? Which I will have passed in the remarks and restrictions section of the situation update if C2 didn't. I can communicate the exact same thing I kind of just communicated with you. If we'll just say this is Alpha Bravo, all right, as Bravo 8, elevation 13 feet, MSL, container, blah, 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 and I go through it. It kind of changes precisely where that point is, but it's going to be almost an identical attack. But I told you everything you needed to know with just that one identifier there. I told you that you're attacking from an IP directly east, or here, we'll just call it Bravo. Heading to the target area is going to be 270, directly east of the target, and it was 8 nautical miles away. And I communicated that to you with a letter and a number. Much faster, much simpler. This is probably how we're going to be doing it 9 times out of 10. Okay? All right. Yeah, so neither of the CAS pages on the Harrier or the Hornet are functional right now. Yeah, so you could have the IP input as a waypoint. The more important thing, in my opinion, is not the IP, but the target area and what your final attack headings are going to be. So as long as you have your target input correctly and you've got your range to the target and your bearing to the target, I think that you can kind of intuit where your IPs are from that. But I'm not really, I can't really speak on technique. Like I'm not an expert in pilot technique for how they want to manage their systems, but I know some of the other like A10 guys that I've flown with in DCS, they use their HSI and like the course knobs to kind of help them. They'll set that as the heading to the target, and it'll help them figure out whether or not they're going to be inside the final attack cone when they roll out and that kind of thing. But you guys are going to have to experiment with your systems to figure out how best to use it, especially as new systems come online. Like when the CAS page comes online, that's going to be money because that's going to display for you what your final attack cones are, where your IP is, where the target is, all that stuff. But until then, you kind of have to do some legacy pilotage, I guess, to make it work. Yeah, and the talk-ons are definitely like a perishable skill. It's very easy to kind of lose the ability to do those easily. So hopefully they weren't too terrible because I haven't done it in like 6 months or so. But yeah. I appreciate it. That's definitely the intent. So one other thing, real quick, that we can talk about as far as the IPs go, is that this is also technically where the offset is. All right, and the offset is not often used, but it's just designed to kind of get you closer to your final attack cone. So if I say like Bravo 8 right, that means that from Bravo 8, you're offsetting to the right before you ingress, and that's in relation to the target. All right. So Bravo 8 left would be passing through the Bravo IP, offsetting left in relation to the target. And then I would have set you up for success with final attack headings that, correspond to a northwestern attack. I just don't want the offsets to come up in the future and then us have like no idea what that means or how to use it, but that's how that'll go. And generally, so this is kind of like pro tip, all right? If you know where the friendlies are, you know that you're never going to be passing over friendlies. You don't want to drop bombs over friendlies because of the risk of like short rounds or short bombs or that kind of thing. Only in extremis would you do that. Your typical run-ins are going to be flanking friendlies around one of their sides. So that'll help you build your SA and what to expect when you enter the target area, knowing that, this is not an available ingress heading. So if he's holding me up here to the northeast, that means he's probably going to be running me around here or around here. Cool? All right. All right, so once I read to you the attack brief, I'll give you remarks and restrictions, okay? Most of the time, the important thing is a TOT. But one thing that we lack in DCS is kind of like a synchronized clock, and I don't have a clock when I'm looking through the DCS binoculars, so we're probably not going to be using those. I'm going to be giving you a lot of like when readies or immediates, that kind of thing, and that just tells you how urgently I need those attacks, but there's not like a TOT that you need to meet right away. Eventually we can get to the level where I don't know how, until the systems are implemented in DCS, if we can all just like hack a watch over Discord or something like that. But that's and that's the TOT to the first attack. Okay, so like the lead aircraft, if I give a TOT of 5-7 to the lead aircraft, that means or to the flight with 1 minute intervals, that means lead's hitting at 5-7, dash 2's hitting at 5-8, dash 3's hitting at 5-9, and so on and so forth. Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out how that works. I could start giving TTTs, all right, time to target. Like, hey, I need the attack 5 minutes from now. Hack, which could work. But until we are all looking at like the same minute hand on a clock, TOTs are probably going to be off the table. Yeah. So in remarks and restrictions, the ones that we're going to be dealing with in DCS are usually going to be TOTs and then final attack headings. All right, and those are communicated how I said them right here. All right, so that's 250 through 280, and that means that when you roll out on your attack and go wings level, you need to be aiming somewhere within this arc, and then you give your in 260 call or something like that. Okay. All right, readbacks. When we're ready for readbacks, there's only 3 things you need to read back: elevation, location, and restrictions. All right. So if I asked you to read back this attack, it's a hell of a lot of stuff we all wrote down, but all you would need to read back is 13 feet MSL, grid, and then you read the grid from your system. Final attack heading 250 through 280. And then I would tell you good readbacks. Everybody in the flight needs to read it back. All right, so I need, even if it seems dumb, and the Air Force doesn't do this, the Air Force just has lead read back for the entire flight. But I'm going to ask readbacks from everybody in the flight because I want to know that somebody didn't input that coordinate correctly. All right, it's preventing fratricide, and it's kind of adding efficiency. It's the slowest move, smoothest fast principle. All right, so the way that would sound is Weasel 1-1 in flight, advise when ready for readbacks. Or go with readbacks when ready, okay? And it'll probably take you a little while to enter all the information into your system, all right? And then I expect to hear Weasel 1-1, 13 feet MSL, grid blank, final attack heading 250 through 280. Weasel 1-1, good readbacks, Weasel 1-2, go. And then Weasel 1-2 comes up. Weasel 1-2, 13 feet MSL, grid, final attack heading 250 through 280. Weasel 1-2, good readbacks, Weasel 1-3, go. And it just goes in order, okay? Yeah, so it's not supposed to do that, but if it changes a little bit, I'll accept it. Okay? Or knowing that it changes, I'll accept the kneeboard readbacks, but like the intent here is that once the system's working properly, we won't have to worry about that. Worst case scenario, read it back the way you wrote it down, and we'll use the honor system for now. Like no actual lives are at stake. But eventually, I'd like you to be looking at your NPCDs and reading it back from those. Absolutely, and we can roll with those punches. Like I'm not going to say that we can't ever do CAS because like I can't input a grid coordinate in MGRS or that kind of thing. It's just we'll work through it. It's fine. So once everybody's gotten readbacks done, all right. If this was a bomb on target attack, all right, we got to roll into correlation phase, right? Which we said was a talk on. All right. So that means I'll ask you to get your sensors or your eyes in the vicinity of the target area, and I will ask you, flight lead, to describe what it is that you see. From what it is that you see, working big to small, all right, I see, a north-south running road with an east-west running road to the south of, the location you passed. I see some trees to the northwest and a little pocket. You're just describing a word picture of what it is you see, and I will talk your eyes or sensor onto the target area. If it's a bomb on coordinate attack, all right, we don't really have to do correlation. Do we remember why? Yep. Yep, because you gave those readbacks. You gave me lines 4, 6, and restrictions. That satisfied correlation for a bomb on coordinate attack. Correlation is no longer required. Or it's not that it's not required, it's that correlation is complete. There's a lot of other options. Okay. It's not always talk-ons. Sometimes we can do a laser spot handoff, in which case I'll tell you that I'm lasing, 1611, stare 1611. And then you tell me when you're spot. 1 second. Can one of you talk, please? Oh, weird. some reason, none of you are getting picked up on stream, but it doesn't matter. All right, we're fine. Yeah, exactly. So, wonder why that is. Anyways. No, so laser spot handoff is one option. Smoke mark is another option, in which case correlation will kind of be withheld until you're in. So like you'll tell me IP inbound, and I will have coordinated the smoke mark to pop up as your IP inbound. All right, so we got some smoke here. All right, and then as you're rolling in, Weasel 1-1, contact mark in heading 270. And I would tell you from the mark, southeast 50 meters, cleared hot. And then, you know, we engage that way. There's just a lot of kind of ways to skin that cat. And we can't really go through all of them right now. All right, so once correlation's complete, all right, I will tell you the thing is your target. All right, so if the target here was the container, I'll talk you onto the container, and I'm not going to say that is your target. I'm going to say the container, you know, and I'll try to describe it back to you, is your target. As soon as I say that the thing is your target, we're executing the attack. All right, we're in the attack phase. Now, flight lead is getting in position to hit the IP and ingress. They're doing the IP inbound comms. Dash 2 is making sure that they're, you know, 8 nautical miles behind flight lead. Dash 3 is 8 nautical miles behind Dash 2. Dash 4 is 8 nautical miles behind Dash 3. They're all providing their own comms. So as lead passes the IP inbound, I'll say Weasel 1-1 continue. As Dash 2 passes the IP, Weasel 1-2 IP inbound. Weasel 1-2 continue. Lead rolls out. Weasel 1-1 in heading 270. Weasel 1-1 cleared hot. And then Weasel 1-1 employs. You'll give me an off call, okay, with your ordnance expenditure. You just need to say off, 2 away, time of fall if you have it, okay? But with dumb bombs, it's not really necessary. And then you don't have to say anything else until the attack is complete, and then you tell me when your flight is reestablished per the egress instructions. No. Your acknowledgement of the cleared hot call is your off, your ordnance expenditure, and then the bomb's impacting. It should, yeah. I will hear when you press the pickle button. If you have that tone set up, it'll be a little boop sound, and then I'll know that the bombs are off the aircraft, and I'll be expecting an off call from whoever just dropped those bombs. No. As long as you're off per the egress instructions, you don't need to give a direction. Now, if you're doing your like armed reconnaissance flights, it's treated more like a CTAF. Okay, so like an in the blind call where you'll give off with direction, expenditure, whether you were hot or dry, but under the control of a terminal attack controller, the assumption is that you followed the instructions properly. Make sense? Okay. Let's see. All right. So in this situation with 1 minute interval, 2 Mark 82s off each aircraft, we're in the assess effects phase now. All right. I'm going to see impacts. All right. Weasel 1-1 impacted. It was close enough to maybe suppress the target. Okay. But probably not close enough to destroy the target. Sorry, Weasel 1-1. Weasel 1-2, when you're in 270 or whatever your in call is, in 250, say you offset from the IP a little bit this way, and you're coming in 250, I'll tell you from leads hits, southeast 50 meters, cleared hot. And that just gives you a better aim point for where you need to be dropping your ordnance in a situation where maybe you can't see the target because it's obscured for some reason, or it's just a small little dot there. And that big old smoke plume right here is a much better identifier. That's where we're assessing the effects on the target and gauging whether or not I need to call you in for, you know, an immediate reattack, same game plan, same 9 lines, same restrictions, and we just do it again. Make sense? If the attack was successful and the target was destroyed, suppressed, neutralized, whatever the appropriate criteria was in that attack, all right, we don't need to do a reattack. We'll just log that as battle damage assessment. All right, so 1 container suppressed, or we'll say destroyed because 4 jets drop Mark 82s on it. You guys reset. You write that down on your knee board because you'll be passing that back to S2. That's good for your intel, all right, and your debrief purposes. That's important. And then you'll tell me when the flight's reestablished at the egress holding instructions. All right, Mazda Dodge 1517 or whatever it was. All right, we were using keyhole. We're kind of using a weird combination here because I changed it up mid-attack. But you'll tell me when you're reestablished, and then we start that process all over again at the game plan. And then we're ready for our next attack. Maybe I want to kill these guys. Maybe an enemy infantry platoon was just rolling up on my right flank, and now I want you to drop or do a gun run on them. All right, that'll be, maybe I want Alpha 8, no offset or anything like that. Elevation, whatever, description, enemy infantry platoon, location. I could give you a grid. I could just say west 2,000 meters, west of my position 2,000 meters, and talk you on, or do a laser spot handoff. Nearest friendlies, I'm east 2,000 from the target area. I could give you a georef, whatever. It's just, it's like we're just starting the process over again, and we're doing another attack, and I'm getting as much ordnance off you as I can during your time on station. And then when you're out of ordnance, you know, your Winchester or your bingo, then I send you back to the LHA or the FARP or the airfield, and we come back and we do it again. Any questions? No? Well, yeah, unfortunately, I think some of my answers aren't going to have a lot of context to them because you won't be able to hear yourselves, unfortunately. Yeah, but yeah, but that's like CAS in a nutshell. So we can go ahead and fly this. I would like the first set. All right, so the first flight, I guess you guys are a flight of 5 right now, or you can break it up into 2 sections, 1 of 3, 1 of 2, like a light division in a section of aircraft, or you can have the second section be F-18s if one of you wants to fly the Hornet. As I understand it, only one of you are from F-18 squadron. Okay. So how about you fly with Disco then in Hornets, and I'll have a section of 3, or a heavy section or a light division of 3 Harriers. And first, we'll practice those Type 1s and all the tally comm and everything, and we'll go over like reminders and everything in flight. So Type 1, probably bomb on target, since I'll tell you right now, Type 1 bomb on target and Type 2 bomb on coordinate are going to be like 90% of all of your attacks. These ones over here, for unguided or dumb, you know, forward firing ordnance or anything like that, Mark 82s, that kind of thing. And these ones over here for PGMs. But there's always that 10% where you get a weird one where we're trying to employ rockets, you know, rockets somehow through, you know, bomb on coordinate through a cloud layer. Type 2 has to be weird, or you know, Type 2 bomb on target where I'm not close enough to laze the target, and so you need to self-derive your GBU-12s. That's fairly common, but we're not going to deal too much with Type 3s right now, just because I think we can work on these two and kind of get really good at those first. Okay. That's fine. One of your radios is basically just going to be cycling, and one of them is going to stay the same. One of them is going to be on your inner flight net. That's what you talk to your wingman on. And then the other one, you're just cycling through to talk to the people who own the area that you're flying in. All right. So if nobody has any questions right now, first sortie, I'd like us to load up on a bunch of rockets, dumb bombs, gun, that kind of thing. And then the second sortie, um, GBU-12s. And then for the Hornets, I can run you in on another Type 1 series while the Harriers are doing their PGMs. We'll do Onyx 1. Oh, wait, when you spin up? I don't really care what you do when you spin up, but just you'll check in with me on Onyx 1 as you're approaching the area, and I'll gen up like a fake situation update and that kind of thing. We'll use the container targets to the west of Aldafra with the tire stacks or the tire circles around them for now. And then if we do this again, hopefully soon, we can go over to like the urban area and work some urban CAS or do some like that like vehicle graveyard. There's like an island west of Aldafra. There's 2 target areas on there. We'll use the eastern one. Yeah. It should be south of the ships that are out there. Okay. Well, I will. Actually, what frequencies are you guys gonna be using for your interflight? Onyx 1. So let me. Yep, and that'll be AM.